Hey guys, good morning. It is the first Winterathon. So, Winterathon is basically a readathon that Sasha from the Wild Sasha will host every once in a while for her Patreons. So, this one is a 48-hour edition, and the idea is that you read gifted books. Now, you can interpret that any way you want. I'm going to interpret that as books that were made available to me for free, and so I'm going to be reading NetGalley arcs. Now, I am debating going to the forests in the morning. And for that, I would need an audiobook, and so that doesn't fit in with the team because then I'm gonna be continuing State of Fear by Michael Crichton. So I'm having some breakfast now, and then perhaps afterwards I'm gonna go to the forest. Part of me is like, yeah, but I have a certain TBR for this Winterathon, and I'm not gonna be able to complete it if I do that. But on the other hand, there's always an excuse not to go to the forest or not to get out of the house, and then I'll just like constantly be making plans for I should do this thing at some point and then never doing it. So probably I'm gonna do it. I need to take the bicycle there because it's like half an hour by bicycle to get there. And then I'll do some walking around there for like an hour maybe or so and then walk back, I guess. So cycle back. So I'll probably be doing that. So if you've been annoyed with my cat in the background during this, it's basically Zoomies hour, meaning that they are very active at this point in time. All right, it was definitely my intention to update you guys more on this. But so, I listened to some like 80 pages or so, I guess, of State of Fear by Michael Crichton this morning. So, this wasn't really on my TBR for Winterathon, but basically, yeah, if I wanted to go for a walk, I needed an audiobook. But so State of Fear is basically a thriller in which Michael Crichton has environmentalist climate change supporters be the bad guys, and so they are basically trying to create these big environmental disasters in order to prove the existence of climate change, and so our protagonist has to kind of try and stop them. Now, I have gone through this book almost entirely now. I was for a very long time kind of hoping that we would turn things around and that we would end up supporting climate change, but at this point I'm pretty sure that that's not the type of story that we're getting at. So at this point I'm pretty sure that he's just leaning into conspiracy theories surrounding climate change. This book was published in 2006. I definitely know that when I was young, there was definitely a whole lot more skepticism about climate change, so that's probably around that time. And so it's been very annoying to read this because, okay, initially, you don't really know where he's going with the story, and, he's just giving counter arguments to climate change. He's just quoting research that, like, indicates that maybe levels haven't been rising, maybe sea levels have risen to those extents in the past and things like that. So he's just quoting scientific works and they're just discussing that and discussing the possibility of, for example, the impacts that we've recently been seeing on our climate, that they are not due to CO2, to green gas emissions, but that they're, for example, due to deforestation, and thus completely ignoring the link between deforestation and CO2 emissions. But regardless, let's just keep that aside. Initially, we have our protagonist be an environmentalist himself, and so he is hearing these arguments, but he's not really willing to believe them. He is very skeptical towards their arguments. But at this point in time, it's just gotten worse and worse. And so, like, every single character in this book that is supporting the idea of climate change being real, all of those characters are either criminals who are willing to, have many people's lives be sacrificed in order to make sure that climate change is taken seriously, or there are people who don't know what they're talking about and aren't willing to take action. So does he only promotes these sort of like two views of people who, support climate change? They're either massive criminals or they're just like naive people who don't really know what they're talking about. But so yeah, it's kind of irksome. It's kind of annoying me. It's kind of annoying me a lot that is a book written by Michael Crichton that I really love, his Jurassic Park's books. But yeah, this one isn't it. I will definitely continue on until the end. I am very eager to see what the author's note is going to be, but I already read the last line of it and I was like, yeah, I'll leave my thoughts on that until I've read it in context, but that was already irking me. But so for the majority of today, I've been watching Sasha sprints. So I think at this point in time, we're like 8 hours or so into the sprint. We are now doing the final sprint. It's almost 9 o'clock, and then, Jade is doing a live show, so we're jumping over into that. I might jump over into the Buffy watch-along at that point in time. But so today I've basically been reading in an arc called Yume. I will have the author's name up on the screen, or I will have the cover on there somewhere. I'll make room for it. So, it's a weird one. It's a very weird one. Basically, it's kind of divided between two perspectives, two storylines. One of them has been the easiest one and has been that has intrigued me from the beginning. And so we are following a Black woman who is living in Japan and who is basically teaching English there. In a sort of like private school, I guess, where they have like where they teach classes for children and their parents. And so one of the classes that they offer is English, and she's the only native English speaker. But because she is Black, she also has to deal with a lot of racism in the workplace, because the kids, when they first see her, they're very much scared of her. They think of her as kind of like a monster almost. And even though her co-workers have been working with her for 2 years, the further that I'm getting into this book, the more that you see that they basically still, to some extent, share that same sort of opinion about Black people. I know I can definitely understand this being the case, because I know that when we went to China, we were a group of I think we were a group of all white people, but even then, I could hear the Chinese word for foreigner all the time, wherever we went. And so even though we were in like big cities like Beijing, for example, I would still hear the word foreigner all the time, indicating how little contact they basically have with foreigners. And, I think they will probably have even less contact with Black people. And so I can understand that it is something that they're not confronted with on a regular basis. However, of course, I would expect if you've been working with a Black person for 2 years and have gotten to know that person, that, I would hope that that would have made an impact, but apparently it doesn't. And I think that I read that this is kind of inspired with her own history, with her own background. So I think that the author herself might have been an English teacher in Japan. But so it's been very interesting to see that part, that slice of life part. But then there's a totally different part to this story, in which we're basically in the dream world, and we're following some yosai. I don't remember how it's called now, but basically it's sort of like supernatural entities. They're not necessarily demons, they can be benevolent as well. So they're kind of specters or something like that. And so we're watching this one human who basically has the ability to travel into the dream world, and who's basically linked himself to one of these yosai, and he's basically helping him, and the yosai in return is kind of protecting him. We don't really know why he needs protection. We don't really know what made him seek out protection. But so we have these two very differing stories, these very differing settings, but they are starting to mirror one another a little bit more, because there's also this sort of like weird yosei in that dream world that is kind of like unlike other yosei. Basically, all of the other yosei are like, what are you? They don't really know. And so the sort of conversations that take place between those yosei and the strange one very much start to mirror the conversations that we have our protagonists. I've forgotten Sibel, what her name is. So the conversation that Sibel has to deal with, conversations of like, oh, so you speak Japanese? And then in the dream world, this strange yosei will have to endure conversations like, oh, so you know how to use chopsticks? So the further we're getting along, so I'm not at the third, I'm like a third of the way in now, but the further we're getting along, the more that these start to mirror one another, the more that I'm starting to think that maybe this is sort of like a representation of the fact that she feels like a monster, and so we have that sort of representation within the dream world, but I'm not entirely sure. I'm very much eager to see these worlds collide and to see an overlap between the two, because I know that that is what we're going towards at some point. But so yeah, I've talked about this long enough, but I should have really done more updates throughout the day. But so yeah, I'm going to be rounding off this clip now, and so I'll probably be continuing on reading a little bit between the episodes of Buffy that I'm still watching tonight, and maybe after Buffy still. I don't know at what time we're stopping, but this will hopefully be my focus tomorrow. I was originally going to read the second arc as well, and we'll have to see tomorrow what ends up happening, but I would be very happy if I get that one done, because that is over 500 pages. Hey guys, Sunday morning, and so yesterday I got like 36% into Yume, and now I am at percent 40. So I did just realize that I also still need to film and edit today, so I don't know whether I'm gonna be able to finish anything over this weekend. So maybe this like 48-hour vlog is just gonna be me failing to finish even one book. But so let's just see what the day brings. Sasha sadly had to work in the morning, so she couldn't do her sprints as she had intended to, but I still had an old Sasha productivity sprint that I hadn't gone around to because I was on holiday at the time. So I've got that on in the moment, so I still get to spend the day with Sasha, I guess, that way. But so, yeah, I'm going to be continuing on reading for a little bit. I think I'll read for like the first sprint of this particular sprinting session, and then I'll do my filming, and hopefully I'll do my edits still like around lunchtime in any case, so that like I have the full afternoon more or less to just focus on reading some more. Today hasn't been going great, so I had to film my mid-month check-in. Actually, I had to film that yesterday, so I filmed that one, but then when I was editing it, it was horrible. Like, it's been the second time that I filmed with my mic back on, because I finally changed the batteries, and I was just talking way too loud. I was just used to projecting my voice towards the camera, and so at a certain level, at a certain decibel level, the audio doesn't pick it up anymore, or like it cuts it off, and so then the audio became like super like robotic in that point in time, and so I had just like so many of those points, and so I got through like 4 minutes of editing or something when I was like, no, I really need to refilm this, because I'm already super annoyed with the audio here. So I had to refilm it and had to talk a lot quieter. Luckily, the first video I filmed with the mic back on seems to be okay. I seem to have like talked a lot quieter back then, and so that audio seems to be in order, so I won't have to refilm that one. But so that means that I've lost like 3 hours or more at this point in time. I think almost 4 hours on this particular video that's now finally exporting, and that needs to go up in like 3 hours from now. But so, yeah. Thanks for that. So I'm starting to fear whether I'm gonna be able to finish Yume today or not, but in any case, I'll have made great progress on it. I definitely will still try my best to get through it. I will also need to prepare my HelloFresh meal. So during that, I'll be listening some more to State of Fear by Michael Crichton, and I'm almost thinking whether I shouldn't just listen to that for the remainder of the evening at that point to at least have one thing finished. But I don't know. We'll see how quickly I go through the rest of Yume for the remainder of this afternoon. If I get through it quicker than expected, because I am quite engaged now with the story, then maybe I'll still be able to finish it. Hey guys, I don't know what time it is, but it's probably already like close to 11 at this point in time. So a while back I finished State of Fear by Michael Crichton. So yeah, I didn't really enjoy this book at all, and the afterword by the author is quite interesting. Basically in it he indicates that, all he knows is that we know far too little about the environment, about our climate and things like that, and that he more or less what it boils down to is the fact that he feels like too much scientific study is funded by particular organizations, funded by certain governments, and that research will always lean towards what is positive news for the people who are funding the research, and so that you cannot trust scientific research to some extent because it will always have a bias involved in it. And then, funnily enough, he kind of ends his author's note by saying that everybody has a hidden agenda except for him. But, this entire book is very much colored by his agenda, by what he wants to portray, and he doesn't put any nuance into the story, or he doesn't offer up any characters that could offer nuance, because every character that he integrates into the story who does support climate change and who does believe in all of the investigations and all of the conclusions that scientists have reached, all of those are shown to be either crooks or, innocent, naive people who are at the same time also hugely hypocritical because they won't change anything about their lifestyle. So, yeah, I found it to be very interesting, I guess. But I also then read an article, which I will link down below, which is basically about, the way in which Michael Crichton's research is wrong, or the way in which he overlooks certain things within his research to kind of support his view on things. Whereas, there are certain nuances to the research that he's quoting as a sort of like indication that climate change is a hoax that he's just overlooking entirely. But I know it's a common criticism of his work to say that the science doesn't really hold up. So I'm just going to say, in terms of an action thriller, it has its action sequences, it has its thrillery bits, I guess, but overall I feel like there was just too much energy put into the message of the story that slowed down the pacing of the action bits too often, and there's just too much of a sort of like condescending tone to the research being presented to the audience. Basically, I am gonna let that subject fly at the moment. I am now close to the 80% mark in Yume, and which apparently you need to pronounce as Yume, I think. But so I'm really enjoying that one, but as I said, I cannot really talk about it more because of spoilers. I don't think I will be able to finish it anymore because according to my Kindle, I still have 2 hours left to read in it, and it's only like an hour until midnight. So, but the sprint is over now, so I'm gonna rejoin the conversation, and I'll update you guys tomorrow morning. Hey guys, so it is Monday, Winterathon is over, and I gotta say that, like, the live stream yesterday ended around like midnight or something like that, or like 40 minutes past or something like that, so I was basically in bed by 1, but I had to wake up late this morning because when my second alarm clock went off at 7:30, I was still like in no position to keep my eyes open for longer than like a minute. So I have been having a slow start to my Monday morning in that sense. But so let's just round off the vlog by talking about what I've read throughout the weekend. So in this weekend, I finished The State of Fear by Michael Crichton. So I got some, like 168 pages is what I read in that book over those 2 days. I'm glad I finished it, but as you know from this video, I wasn't really happy with the book overall. But so yeah, that one is done. Another Michael Crichton off of my list of books by him that I've read. And so I then also read about 85% of Yume by Sifton, Tracey. I'm never gonna remember the entire name, it seems, but so that one I got to like 84%, I think, and so that comes down to 450 pages. So overall I read over 600 pages in those 2 days, which I think is pretty reasonable, especially considering I lost like 3 hours or so at some point because of filming a video twice and editing that one, which took me way longer than I had originally intended it to. But so yeah, I'm very happy with the way that this weekend went. I just really loved spending time with Sasha all that time, but also with the other patrons. I think Patreon is actually such a nice way to get to know some people in the community because the group is way smaller, and so you really get to have interactions with people more thoroughly that way. You really get to spend more time with those people because there are less people in the chat, so there's more interaction possible. But so yeah, very much looking forward to the next edition of Winterathon whenever it's going to pop around. But happy with my progress this weekend, and I am a little bit behind on track because I was hoping to finish both Yume and the other arc this weekend. But then again, I didn't plan in State of Fear, and so that's ahead of track in that sense. So I hope it balances out to some extent. But so yeah, that's gonna be it for this reading vlog. Hope you guys enjoyed it, and see you guys for the next one. Bye!